That morning we went into labor. She went into labor, and it was a really excruciating, painful labor.
I feel like shock is an understatement. It was, and saying that I was numb wasn't true either because I felt absolutely everything.
I was in shock. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know what to say.
Some part of me was still holding on to God is going to make a miracle. Like somehow they're wrong.
My thoughts were like, what? What am I hearing? What's going on? Why you make me leave the room? Like, what is happening?
Our first baby passed in utero, which means most of you probably already know that it was a stillbirth at 32 weeks.
We lost Gabriel, that's his name. We just never knew what happened. Like, I knew it was a stillbirth. They gave us all the, viral something. And I'm like, okay.
Which I think was just the...
It was just like
thing
one
to say.
generic thing to
Because
say.
they couldn't...
Yeah.
say what it
We
was.
never found out. Never knew what happened.
We've had 4 losses.
We had a miscarriage in April of 2015. In December 2017, we had a second miscarriage. We had an ectopic pregnancy in March of 2019. And we had a 4th miscarriage in June of 2021.
We lost our son to a stillbirth at 39 weeks. I was in complete denial when they first told us that there was no heartbeat. I didn't believe them. I wanted them to go get a new battery or a new machine or a new doctor. I just could not believe that this happened to us.
I did lay there for a really long time, just in complete shock. Even though my husband was in a little bit more of a denial, trying to, figure it out, I knew the moment that the Doppler touched my stomach that my baby was gone, because throughout the 9 months, every single time, they measured the heartbeat, he was just this big, loud, strong heartbeat right away. And that deafening silence when they first touched my stomach, that's when I first felt, everything drop inside of me. So I realized something was wrong. In that moment, my heart broke in a million pieces and my soul was crushed. And I went from, screaming in excruciating labor pains to the pain of my heart breaking. And I remember realizing that emotional pain is just so much worse than physical pain ever could be.
Before we had our loss, we didn't know anyone at all. There was no one that we knew. We were young, and it was just something that I didn't even think happened to anyone.
I did not know of anyone that had gone through something like this before it happened to us.
We had heard of people in our life that had miscarriages. Usually it was much later after the fact. We were never really in it with them during early stages of the grief, and it was more like, oh yeah, I had a miscarriage in between my 2 pregnancies, or much later in life, like, oh yeah, 20 years ago I had a miscarriage.
Before our loss, we never even entertained the thought of losing our own child.
No, we never talked about it because we didn't know that would be something that could happen to us.
Loss never crossed my mind. I didn't expect it to happen to us.
We didn't share it with anybody. We just kept it to ourselves. We tried telling our family members, but we thought they weren't gonna understand.
When it was confirmed that there was no heartbeat, my whole family, his whole family, just were all in the hospital the whole time, outside, while I was inside the labor room?
The first person who learned of our loss was my mom. When I went into labor, the chaos of labor, we called my brother. It was 5 a.m, and he met us just literally on the side of the road, and we handed off our toddler and rushed to the hospital.
We never really shared it. I didn't personally share it with anyone. My only pregnancy I really spoke about was my last one, thinking that this was going to happen.
Everyone was there with him,
Right.
but I couldn't see any of them at all, and they wouldn't let him inside with me. Because this happened in the Philippines, so if you're in labor, you're alone. They don't let your husband come in with you, and that was, I think, the hardest part. It's just going through it alone.
A couple hours after finding out that we had lost our son, and we hadn't talked to anyone or anything, but my mom walked in the door, and big smile on her face, expecting to find her daughter in labor. And the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "Mom, he's gone." And she was still walking towards me when I said it, and she immediately dropped to her knees and wailing in pain and tears. And I think she had more of the denial, like my husband, just no, and asking for a miracle and just crying out to God, which was hard because I already knew that there was nothing, but it was just brand new for her.
She was losing a grandson right there in our eyes and feeling the same pain that we had just felt moments before, or maybe an hour or two before. And we were in denial, we were sad. It was a really quiet, solemn room. And for her to come in and hear that news, to drop to her knees, we felt that pain all over again. And as she was praying over her belly, asking God for a miracle, there was a big part of us that was in denial and didn't believe that it could happen, but there was also a really small part of us that really wanted that miracle to come.
Everything. We were so confused. The big how and why, was our big question, was how could this happen? We were at our hospital 12 hours earlier, at a 2-hour ultrasound with just continued confirmation on how healthy our baby was, how healthy I was. It was just this unbelievable shock and inability to wrap our head around how you could go from that 12 hours earlier to there's no heartbeat. None of that really made sense to us, and it still doesn't, honestly, to this day. Being told that there was nothing that we could do is hard, because you want to hear that there's some tangible decision or disease or something that happened that led to this, and that just the unknown is extremely difficult to live with.
What's going on? Now, you cannot say what. This is in Filipino. And they were like, okay, then the whole day I was there waiting, and I called everyone. Then the doctor finally came. He goes like, if the baby's dead, we're gonna induce her. If the baby's dead? What happened? Well, you should have brought him last night. Well, I'm 23 years old. How am I supposed to know that?
I asked my doctor why it would happen to me. How come I had gone through this the first time, and after the second one I asked again, why is this happening if this was normal? And he said women go through this all the time, and not to worry about it. We just have to keep trying.
So a lot of them really just wanted to comfort us, but I felt like no one just really knew what to say. They would say things like, "Oh, it's a good thing that you lost the baby now, because you might have had problems later on, and you don't want that. You're too young." Or the baby saved you, or you're young, you'll have another baby, and none of those things. I would have just loved a hug and somebody to say, just cry, because I felt like I couldn't, because I was trying to be strong for him, because I saw him, he was like falling apart. He was devastated.
People said a number of things. They said maybe it was for the best. Maybe the baby was sick. Maybe this was in God's plan.
We've gotten a lot of things have been said to us with, we remind ourselves all the time that people just don't know. And, we didn't even know a couple months ago the right things to say, the right things not to say, how hurtful words can be. Some of the really hard ones, during my 6-week checkup, my doctor told me that I will only feel better when there's a living baby in my arms. And that was extremely hard for me to hear because babies don't replace babies, and nothing will ever replace Vincenzo or our son. And that the fear of even going down that road and how scary and difficult that's going to be, it's hard to hear that that's the only thing that could make us feel better. I didn't think that was appropriate.
They were saying you should be happy, your son is an angel. I'm like, do I look happy to you? Like those are the things, like, okay, can you, I want to tell them to stop, but at the same time I want to be polite, but I'm just being polite. But in my heart it's like, God, I didn't ask for this. I love this kid from the moment I found out that I'm gonna have especially when I'm gonna have a son. Doesn't matter if a boy or girl, but when I found a son, like everything in my dreams was just shattered.
They never said anything to me, but I could hear. She would tell me what people would say, and I could see that will make her feel even worse.
I didn't have the courage to say, just don't say anything. Just hug me. Just be there. I don't need words. I just need to feel like, I didn't do anything wrong.
I actually regret to admit that I have also said a few of these hurtful things with good intentions, not knowing exactly what it is that I was saying or that I even really meant them. But I said certain things like, okay, maybe this happened for a reason, and maybe our baby would have lived an unhealthy life, and that this was better for him, that he didn't have any suffering. And that's hard. I have a lot of guilt about that, knowing that even as a parent, I've said some things that I don't believe.
But with that, it helps us have, patience and grace with those that say the wrong things at certain times, because it's like even we've had thoughts like that.
I didn't realize how important it was to be in a pregnancy support group, because this happened to us 24 years ago. I don't even know if there was any form of support group for any kind of loss at that time in the Philippines. Going through the support group in Loving Arms, it was such a blessing, because I had been able to grieve properly.
For me, it's more of like 24 years ago, he died. And being in Loving Arms support group, he came back to life. Now, instead of having us 5, we're 6. Or we're forgetting 1 member, 6 members.
I think being in a support group is incredibly important. So when we were brand new to this grief and we were looking for support groups, I actually thought that I was going to a support group for my wife. And it wasn't until I got there and started talking and expressing myself that I found that, no, this support group is also for me just as much as it is for my wife. And it gave us a safe space and some structure to really sit down and talk about our grief, to hear other people's stories, and writing letters to each other and to God and to our baby really gave us that structure and grief that we needed.
When you're at your absolute lowest, rock bottom, you're kind of desperate for anything that might help. So, I'm open to anything that will help us during this time. So, logically I thought this could be good for us. But on the way there, I was like, this is the last place I want to be. On the way home, I was thinking I cannot wait for next week. Like, this is going to be a long week till, and we looked forward to every week. And when it was over, that was way too short. And every time, every group felt way too short. You know, when you're wheeled out of that hospital and you're like, people are just still driving around and going to work, and like, don't they know my baby just died? Like, how are they going to work right now? You know, it's like the whole world continues. You know, having this support group felt like just this little place in the world where it did stop and we could talk about him and share his story and say his name, and it was wonderful. It felt so good, and we can't wait to do it again and again.
I feel like the importance of being in a support group is being around people that understand your pain, understand what you've gone through, being able to share how you feel at the moment, whether it's good or bad, not feeling judged or feel like you're a stranger in this world for feeling the way you're feeling.
It took us about 7 years to actually talk about it, and she finally convinced me to go to a support group. I was like skeptical about it. First class, it actually really surprised me, and it really helped me out a lot and understand her more.
I wanted to question God, but I felt like I don't have an authority to do that. Like, I felt bad asking that, so I still held on to he's gonna. I didn't know. I just knew I couldn't turn my back on him, that I needed him more. I wasn't mad, I was just sad. But I wasn't mad at him. I didn't question. I felt like this is a punishment of something I had done. So it was still on me, but it wasn't like he did this to me or I was mad.
It didn't end with losing Gabriel. Actually, that's how our faith started, because like, it's easy to have faith in God when things are going wrong. But fast forward, when I really gave my life to Christ, it's like, okay, I am here, especially when in bad times. Losing Gabriel made me a better father, because it's not about how good of a dad I can be. It's about how God created me, put me in the situation to be a better father, the best way I can be.
For me personally, I think that it allowed me to pray a little bit more, and I needed to believe that Vincenzo was up in heaven, being watched over with people that we love and with God and Jesus. We really needed that. So it challenged my faith a little bit, to be honest with you. I had a lot of questions of how and why and why us. But I think through those questions and through those challenging prayers, it did allow me to connect a little bit more with my faith.
It's hard for me to give credit to God for all the good in my life and not the bad. And it's like, if he's given me all this beauty in my life, like, who gave me this? And like, how could he allow this into my life? So I struggle with my faith and where to leave my gratitude and where to ask for things, because it's like the biggest thing in the world that has happened to me, and I felt like, you know, that he allowed it. So I struggle personally with anger and questioning more than I ever have in my entire life.
One of the beautiful analogies that I heard is that going through this, you want to try and find a purpose. And right now, the analogy that I heard is, you're right up against a painting. And when you're right up against a painting, you see a lot of the detail, those brush strokes. And we're still very fresh, and we're still very much nose to the painting. And we can see the details of the brush stroke. But hopefully, with a little bit of time, a little bit of perspective, we take a few steps back and we can see the bigger picture and understand what this portrait is that God is painting for us.
No, it didn't really affect me as much as I think it affected her. I could see that she went into a really dark place at that moment.
After my first miscarriage, I felt like I was going to be okay. I was just going to get up, dust myself, and keep going. After the second one, it was almost like they pulled the rug underneath me and my world collapsed. My faith was shattered. Everything was questionable to me.
think we didn't realize it then in 1998, but it made us stronger. It definitely made me a better mom and a better wife. Like everything in the world around me mattered, even the little things like friends, that what they would say or do. I was grateful for it, and like before, everything just kind of like was taken for granted. But losing someone made those relationships matter much more.
I just learned to just listen to people. Like normally, I would try to be a sensei into, hey, this is what you're supposed to do and all that. I just learned to like, okay, if you're struggling with that, okay, you lost a baby, I've been there. Then listen. We just learned to just enjoy the family. You know, we just learned to enjoy the family because that loss made us who we are. Gabriel, he's the main catalyst who brought this family together.
It's the glue.
He's the glue.
Losing Desi, Sophie, Aiden, and June has really brought us closer together. I thought I could do this on my own. I thought I had to be silent about it. And it has brought me closer to God. It has brought me closer to my husband. It has brought me closer to my family. It has really helped me open up about what I've gone through and share and grow and heal at the same time. And now we are the facilitators at our church for In Loving Arms. So we're paying it forward by helping others through their journey.
So we lost our son Vincenzo in May of this year. And to say that relationships have changed would be an understatement. They really have. Some have grown stronger and some have suffered. I have been able to really connect with my family a little bit more over these past few months. And there's been a small blessing in that. And there's been certain friends that have really reached out and connected with me and have been really understanding.
Completely have changed shape. I feel like a completely different person than I was before I lost my son. You know, I have had some difficulty with some of my relationships in my life just because I think people don't know how to be around me, you know, and which I get. I don't know how to be around me, you know. I don't recognize the person in the mirror, you know. It's completely life-changing, so I know that it's an adjustment, and it's like we're figuring it out day by day. We're learning to navigate in the world without our son when, you know, everything in the world makes us think of our son. And like Michael said, it has brought us stronger and closer to some people, and other people, you know, we feel, you know, drifting apart a little bit. But with a change like this, I think that's inevitable.
We want people to know that there's help out there and know that there are support groups for people that have gone through this.
I want them to be more open, especially at hospital settings, doctors' offices, to be more caring, to be more nurturing, understanding, and not just treat me as if I'm just another person. It's painful and it's hard. So having that support.
Well, I hope that people understand that grief is not something that you just go through. It's not a one-time thing, or once you get through grief, then you're recovered all of a sudden. Grief has been described to us, and we really feel that it's kind of more of a circle, or waves, and you kind of go through waves and feelings of grief. And it's something that we're going to live with for the rest of our lives, I'm sure.
This is your grief, and it doesn't shrink over time and get smaller, but you know, your love grows around it, and you can carry it a little bit better. And I think, you know, every day we get a little bit stronger to carry this huge boulder of grief that's on our shoulders. And, you know, one day it will feel a little lighter. We have that hope. We want to talk about our son. We want to say his name. If you bring him up and we cry, like, you're not hurting us. Like, we are always hurt. We are always sad. And when you say our son's name, it keeps his memory alive. It brings them into the moment with us, and that even if we're physically crying, that's what we want. That's what makes us happy. And if they're willing to sit in a little bit of uncomfort with us, it means the world to us.
And when you count the members of our family, please be sure to include our lost child.
So I really hope that through this, that even if someone, just experienced a loss or it was years ago, it doesn't matter how long, that loss is real. That person was destined by God, no matter how short his purpose was for that child. And you fall in love with that baby the moment you find out. And that love is complete. One day when you see that child, he'll recognize me. And finally he'll hear his voice. Say, Mom.
He's not just a baby that we lost, a random baby that we lost 24 years ago. He's alive. And one thing that couples who go through this need to know, that he or she is family, whether it's just a peanut or he or she is a stillbirth or died as an infant. They are family, and they could have lived a legacy, but their legacy, even though their life was cut short, their legacy will live forever.